All right. Okay, welcome everyone. We've already started our May 4th, 2020 virtual council meeting, and we just got out of executive session. So you'll see that you've got your 5 council members present. We also have Village Solicitor Chris Conard in the mix. We have got Judy Kittner, our clerk. I see Colleen Harris, our finance director. And you'll be introduced to our town hall speakers when we move into announcements. And that's where we're headed first. So I want to just quickly begin by saying we want you to wear your masks when you are around other people. It's the right thing to do. It shows your respect for your fellow human beings. And ultimately, no one should be offended by something that we know from the science can slow the spread of COVID-19 and can ultimately help save lives. So we're asking you to do this. Businesses, I think, will be asking folks to do this. We hope that there is a general support for doing the right thing with masks. You're going to hear more about this in the town hall and also in the council meeting, since we're going to be focusing a lot today on reopening the village and government and all that sort of thing. So I just wanted to preface the most important message today is we want you to wear your masks when you are around other people. Let's be safe. Josue.
Thank you so much, Brian. I believe that Judy has to do a roll call. No?
Oh, okay. Good, yeah.
Okay, all right, excellent. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I know there's been a lot of concern shared with us. I've been on the receiving end on what has been perhaps over 20 communications around concerns on reopening and what does it mean for a community, what does it mean for businesses. I want you to know that we hear you. We understand all the concerns, whether you're on the side of wanting to limit all business and just close down all of our parks out of concern for your safety and those in our community. We hear you. I've also received communication from business owners and business employees who are struggling to make ends meet, to put food on the table, and they're eager to get back to work in some way or fashion to be able to move on with their life. We hear you as well. We have a tough challenge ahead of us. There are no easy answers to this, and those are one of the things that we wanna look to address later on in this town hall and council meeting. Also want you to know that since this emergency happened, particularly since March 13th, when we called the first emergency meeting here in Yellow Springs and had a group of over 20 stakeholders meet and talk about how we're going to get through this pandemic. Since then, this has been the issue that I thought about, and I focused my energy on looking at ways on how we will get through this pandemic, and we will get through this together. So everything that we've done has been out of the concern for the safety of our residents and our visitors. So I just want you to know that we're thinking about everyone's involved. You might have not heard us speak solely about businesses, and a lot of our messaging has been focused on our residents, but we have not neglected to think about our residents and our businesses. You see that in our actions. We put hand sanitizers out in downtown area. We've expanded the Wi-Fi signal. If you drive through the library or near the library, you'll see that there's now an expanded Wi-Fi network access there. We did that to ensure that our school children have access to the internet and they're able to continue their studies remotely. We've added an additional Wi-Fi signal down to the Mills Lawn area and the South Walnut. And there are many things that we've engaged in an effort to ensure that our residents and our citizens are able to have access to some resources and be able to access all the things that they need to get on with some aspect of their lives. So we've been thinking about everyone in this process. Before I go further, I want to highlight the numbers that we're at today. As of today, we're at 20,474 cases in Ohio, with Greene County holding at 49 cases. Joining us tonight is Jillian Drew from Greene County Public Health, and she can get into some of the details of what we're facing in Greene County. I won't hold up my colleagues any further. Joining us today is Police Chief Carlson, Fire Chief Colin Altman, Karen Wintrow from the business community, Jillian Drew from Greene County Public Health, and Mayor Pam. And thank you, Brian, for recognizing everyone else that was involved. So now I'll pass the floor over to Fire Chief Colin Altman. Chief.
Thank you very much, Josue. Miami Township Fire Chief Colin Altman. It's May the 4th. Happy Star Wars Day to everybody. If you don't celebrate Star Wars Day, the question is when. So happy Star Wars Day. I'm coming to you live tonight from the command deck of the Star Destroyer Adjudicator. I'm here with Grand Moff Krieger, Jedi Master Wintrow, Darth Sidious, and of course WISO General Manager Luke Dennis. So we're here to dominate the galaxy and make sure everyone's wearing a mask when they go out in public. The fire department has been busy working with both the village and the Chamber of Commerce on issues around the reopening of retail establishments on May 12th. Our fire inspection staff, there's 3 of us, we've been going out and assisting businesses with determining appropriate levels of occupancy. In other words, how many people can safely be in your store. One of the conditions that the state ODH sets on businesses reopening is making sure that there's an appropriate number of people that are allowed into the store that can be managed. And that is based on fire code occupancy. It's 50% of the fire code occupancy. So our inspectors are going out and working with businesses to help them out with that. We've also been helping businesses just with kind of strategic issues about working with setting up their flow through the store and issues about hand washing and those kind of things. So we're happy to help out if you need us. Many of you have reached out already and contacted us via email and phone. If you haven't, please do before you reopen. It's a free service. Just give us a call at 767-7842, option 2 for me, Chief Altman, and we'll get you scheduled. It's by appointment only. Only takes about half an hour, if not less. So one of the things that we're really pushing on people too is to make sure for the retail places that your staff washes their hands regularly while they're working. It is the single most important thing you can do in terms of ending disease transmission. So wash your hands with soap and water as frequently as possible. Make sure your surfaces are clean so you can go out and get multiple different cleaners that will help. If not, just soap and water, mix them together in a bottle, and clean those surfaces regularly. Our friends in the food service world, it's something they're used to and they do all the time. So on the retail side, people have to get used to that as well. So call us if you need help. We're happy to help, and we're here to help you. I also want to mention that today not only is Star Wars Day, but it's also something closer to my heart. It's International Firefighters Day, and that's a real thing. So I just want to give a shout out to my fantastic staff, volunteers and paid staff who work day in and day out to make sure everyone's safe and the community is safe, and have been putting themselves on the line every day with this COVID crisis going into people's homes. So thank you guys and gals. I really appreciate it. Keep up the good work. As always, from all of us here at the fire department, be safe, be kind, be hopeful. And back to you, Josue.
Chief, thank you so much, and happy Firefighters Day. Also today, with it being May 4th, may the 4th be with you. All right, now we will hear from Police Chief Brian Carlson.
Thank you, Josue, Chief, and firefighters. Thank you for your dedicated service. I had a good conversation today with the Health Commissioner, Melissa Howell. You know, she made some good points that the nation as a whole is opening up. Ohio is opening up just in a responsible way. And most importantly, we can achieve our safer environment here in town by continuing the kind efforts that we always do through our messaging, reminders, some proper signage that I know Karen Wintrow and Colin and the health department will be assisting us with. Greene County's actually done a fantastic job in this first attack from COVID-19. Melissa had told me that we had the lowest case rate in the state per 100,000. And to mimic her message, this battle we may feel has been won, but this war is still on. And we need to remember that. The governor has continued the stay-at-home order. So as much as you can do in your local environment, we ask that you do that. The public health department is working tirelessly to protect, investigate, and continue to find potential avenues to keep us all safe. The trend or indicators, they are heading in the right direction regarding cases, hospitalizations, and deaths, but any death is one too many. So remember to protect yourself by continuing physical distancing, covering your coughs, washing your hands frequently, and wearing facial protectors, and simply avoid others who may not be as respectful or have the full understanding that you may of the dangers of the virus. Please mask up, frequently wash your hands. Let's keep one another safe. Back to you, Josue.
Thank you, Chief. Also joining us tonight is Jillian Drew from Greene County Public Health. Jillian.
Yes, my name is Jillian Drew, and I'm a health educator at Greene County Public Health. So really just to build on what everyone has been saying here, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you to the community of Yellow Springs. You guys are doing an amazing job with keeping each other safe and yourselves. But we're not over this yet, and the stay-at-home order has been extended, and so we are still encouraging everyone to listen to those or follow those precautions and protocols that we've put into place and have asked everyone to do, and just continue doing that. Also, you know, with the weather getting nicer again and starting to be more consistent, we need to remember that outdoor recreation and, you know, taking walks in our neighborhood, but staying local to your communities is so critical right now. And, you know, just remembering again, hand washing, wearing a mask while you're out, and maintaining that physical distance. So, you know, we are at Greene County Public Health are here for you, and we're here for the community in any way that we can help, and we will be helping with campaigns and media with more messaging and just continuing to fight this. So.
Okay, thank you, Jillian. And joining us tonight is also Karen Wintrow, president of the Yellow Springs Chamber of Commerce. Karen.
Thanks, Josue. Glad to be with all of you. It was interesting that Jillian ended talking about the beautiful weather and people coming to Yellow Springs. Clearly, not everybody is doing their recreation at home. I don't know that there's going to be a way to prevent that from happening. But I do want the community to know that we are not in any sort of a marketing mode or attraction mode to anyone outside of Yellow Springs. We're certainly encouraging locals and people in the township and people in Yellow Springs to support our businesses, the businesses that are open, and also with online sales and other gift cards and things from the businesses that are operating and doing that. But we are not doing anything to encourage people to come to Yellow Springs from outside. So rest assured that, and it will be a long while before we do that. It's really something we're measuring and really trying to work with our businesses in the community and the village on. The message we are working to get across is mask on Yellow Springs, and that's the campaign we're doing. We've started to post web banners. We'll be doing signage. That was the signage that both of the chiefs referenced. It's signage that we will be printing. It's very attractive. It was done by DJ and Justin Galvin, local business owners here in town, Clay and Stan. They've provided the graphics. The businesses will need to provide some information to us. We'll get those signs printed, so there won't be any cost to the businesses. The only thing we ask of the businesses is to let us know what their business status is. Are they opening on May 12th? If they aren't currently open, are they going to open on May 12th? What changes in hours, what your hours are, what your days, and those kinds of things. So just keep us in the loop of communication. And we'll provide that signage. We also have a really fun big circle template that's a 6-foot template that we're going to use to create social to facilitate physical distancing on the sidewalks outside. We're going to use the same kind of chalk paint we use for street fair, street marking, and mark the sidewalks. So that will be an extra sign to anybody walking downtown for that 6-foot distancing. Although I do want to say, and I know the frustration of seeing people without masks. So our feeling is if we get the message out there strongly enough that if you come to Yellow Springs, the expectation is that you wear your mask. We don't want to identify individual businesses and their individual policies regarding masks, although it's my understanding that most are requiring. But our overall message is, if you're in Yellow Springs, you need to have that mask on. But I do want to ask our community to please remember that one of our values is that we are a welcoming community. And if people are not necessarily behaving in ways that you see that you're comfortable with, perhaps reach out to the police department to ask for some assistance and try not to engage people negatively in any kind of argument or confrontation. Some other things, I mean, what we're here to do in this situation, we're really responding to the community a lot, but obviously our biggest role is supporting the business community. So we are doing 2 weekly Zoom calls. We have one on Friday at noon that is with any of our members and businesses that want to join. Just a sharing session. I will say that it is a little bit more geared towards this idea of business opening and messaging, but anybody's welcome to join. We also have started doing a call with local resident Artie Isaac, who is an incredible facilitator and communicator, and we're doing those calls Monday at 11 o'clock. Again, anybody is welcome to join. If you are interested in that, send an email to me, kwintro@yschamber.org. And also remember that you can get all of the information about regulations, about funding, all of those kinds of things from our website, yschamber.org. And there is a large banner in the homepage when you open that says COVID-19 response. So just click on that and it will take you to all of the information you need to have. Thanks, Josue.
And Karen, I wanted to mention that we did show the signage that you were talking about while you were talking.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So our
Thanks.
YouTube audience was able to see the
Good.
wear it and the mask on.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Brian. And we'll now hear from Mayor Pam. Mayor Pam.
Thank you, Josue, and good evening, everyone. I'd like to start my announcements tonight with a 30-second civics lesson. To remind you, according to the Village of Yellow Springs Charter, the mayor heads the judicial branch of government. It is not a legislative position. We leave that up to our fine council people. The mayor's job is both ceremonial, that's the weddings, the proclamations, the celebrations, ribbon cuttings, parades, and it's judicial. And as such, the mayor runs the mayor's court. Now, under the COVID-19 restrictions and the closure of the Bryan Center, and in keeping with state supreme guidelines, our mayor's court was suspended in mid-March. All cases were continued to our reopening, which is what I wanted to announce tonight, both to you and the council members, that the mayor's court will reopen Tuesday, May 26th. Of course, all the work's been going on behind the scenes, but the actual holding court itself will be Tuesday, May 26th, the day after the Memorial Day holiday. Now, after this beautiful weekend, we've already noticed a bit of an uptick in parking tickets, most of which, of course, went to out-of-towners because you villagers know where the good parking spots are if you're not walking or you're not biking. So you know where to park. But in his news briefing today, Governor DeWine spoke proudly, and again, I noticed with a smile on his face, when he talked about being from Yellow Springs. He's done this several times. It's a special place, he always says. Now, we residents know that, and so does almost the entire Miami Valley. And that's why we end up overflowing with visitors on most weekends. And certainly on a beautiful day like this past Saturday. And I want to assure you that your village team is doing all they can to keep the messages of health and safety going forth, both to you villagers, township people, and to our visitors. But that said, last time I looked, we don't have a moat, we don't have a drawbridge, so we have to walk a very fine line between safety measures for you villagers who have taken on these measures so well and the actions of our visitors. We will follow our state protocols put in place by the governor, but we'll put our own village spin on safety measures and messages that we can control here in Yellow Springs. We'll walk the difficult and sometimes very fine line of public safety for all citizens and the needs for our merchants and the expectations of our guests. And it's not easy. And I know that the discussion at tonight's and ensuing council meetings will illustrate this. But we can all promise you this: as our state and our county starts to crack open the door on reopening, your village leadership team will always do our best to have your very best interests at heart. And I want to assure you of that this evening. With that, Josue, I send it back to you.
Thank you so much, Mary Pam. And now we will open the floor for questions. There are several ways you can submit.
Hold on, Josue. I've still got a few things to say before questions.
Okay, Brian?
So I first of all want to say I really appreciate Mayor Pam's message about balance, because that's going to be something you're going to hear us talk about throughout this meeting as we look at reopening and on a continuing basis. And I know we've all got many different ways that we would prefer reopening or transitioning to happen. But we're going to have to think about that there are a lot of different stakeholders and people involved. So I want to mention a couple things that I feel like everything these days is coronavirus related. But a nice happy thing to think about is this is Teacher Appreciation Week. So it'd be great to get messages to our teachers that are still working hard to keep our students involved and educated and engaged. And I know they're struggling just like the rest of us. I also, related to the schools, want to mention that they have set up a fund for honoring our graduates of 2020 with banners on Xenia Avenue and Dayton Street. And those can be supported through the Community Foundation. You can just go to yscf.org and you would note Class of 2020 banners with your donation. So speaking of supporting our various local entities, I think many of you know about the Yellow Springs Community Foundation website and how they have set up the ability to support individuals and families, businesses, and also nonprofits. And one of the things that I want to make sure everyone thinks about tomorrow is Giving Tuesday Now. So Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, is about supporting our nonprofits now when they need it. And the Community Foundation is supporting that as they do in November. The other thing I wanted to focus on, and it's related to local businesses, is to highlight that we feel at the Village, and I think everyone feels that lives in the Village, that our local businesses are essential to the vitality of Yellow Springs. We love our downtown. We want to make sure that we can continue to support it. And as Josue began the town hall with emphasizing the actions that we've taken that show how much we're thinking about everybody in town, and that includes our businesses. In particular, I want to mention that we had 2 very enlightening meetings last week, which helped us understand some of the current needs for local businesses. We heard that loans are hard to take on, and what can we do about financial aid? And we are thinking about that piece. The second thing we heard is, can the Village support bulk buying, for example, with hand sanitizer? So we're going to talk about that a little bit at the meeting as well. And as Josue mentioned, we've been supporting the sanitizer stations downtown. We know that we need to expand that as we transition under this reopening model. The third thing we heard is, can we support potentially generating funds for local businesses with a grant writer? And we do have an economic development fund where we have earmarked some funds for a grant writer. So we're going to talk about how the Village can potentially support some of those activities via the Yellow Springs Development Corporation. So we've heard a lot of great ideas, and I want to emphasize that the Village, especially in this past 2 years, have shown a willingness and an interest in investing in our local economy. And so we realize now, with the $35,000 that we freed up for the revolving loan fund, there's going to be a decision about that tomorrow. With the grant writer that could potentially do things, with our support of the Development Corporation, and we still have a little bit more money in our Economic Development Fund that, as we keep listening and hearing the ideas from small businesses, we are willing to put those towards supporting good ideas. So the upshot is business is on our mind. There's a lot of activity going on, and we will do what we can to support that. Lisa, I don't know if you want to talk specifically about any of those things that I referenced before we.
Sure. All that I really want to say at this point is to reinforce that as a Village Council person and also as a seated Vice President of the Yellow Springs Development Corporation, I've heard loud and clear what the local downtown businesses are needing, and we are taking that very seriously, as well as a scan of all the creative ideas that we can find in Ohio and beyond about how municipalities are helping businesses to survive and thrive during these times. So I really want to reinforce, we are listening to you. The downtown businesses are the very heart and soul of our community, and we are committed to be here for you to the fullest extent that we're able, while still maintaining our fiscal responsibility for the Village. Thanks.
Right. Thanks, Lisa. I do want to clarify a few things so that we manage expectations as well. So the Village does have limited resources. We started our Economic Development Fund with about $110,000 last year. And again, we're investing a lot of what's in that fund. We talked about at prior meetings that we are going to be losing a lot in terms of our revenues to support essential Village functions with the impact of COVID-19. So our resources are limited. If you've been tracking what else is going on, you know that the federal government has not been paying much attention to local governments or state governments for that matter. So some of the biggest funding is at the federal level. They're not giving much up beyond SBA loans, small business loans. On on the state level and on the county level, I do want to clarify that these are also entities that have tens of millions in rainy day funds. Rainy day funds are not these small pots of money. They're actually rather large. And so one of the things that we are also doing, and this is part of what listening and learning from the needs in town, is building a list of what we can advocate for, which we've already started doing. So I don't necessarily want to get people's hopes up that this is going to be a ton of money. But if you look at the programs that are happening right now, most of them are, again, these sort of loan programs that have low interest, long payoff. We have found a few loan forgiveness kinds of programs, and the most we've seen is an amount of $5,000. A more common amount is about $2,500. And these are to help pay rent and also to move your business or transition your business. So in fact, the only municipality that we found so far in Ohio that's doing this is the city of Kettering. We are way smaller than the city of Kettering, but we are going to do what we can to support this activity. Most of the programs, like the one that Urbana is benefiting from, are from the county. Champaign County, Cuyahoga County. Several counties have started programs, but again, the amounts they're giving are low. So I want to mention the advocacy piece because we will definitely do that as a village government, but it's also important for the state and county to hear from business owners and other local individuals that are their constituents. So we're thinking about you. I just want to really make it clear that we want to keep the channels open. So, Josue, any closing remarks or any other key announcements that we have before we open up questions?
Yes, and keeping with some of what you said, Brian, about what we're doing to create economic opportunities to help our business and residents work through this pandemic, we've done our part as an administration to look at what resources are within our grasp and reach, to fill in the gaps where we can and provide additional resources for our community. One of them, we through our partnership with American Municipal Power, we've advocated for a stimulus package that would help provide relief funds for utilities for residents and businesses. Unfortunately, the Congress refused to include small municipalities such as Yellow Springs, not just from a service perspective, but also relief funds for utilities. They refused to include that. I won't get into some of the negative comment that they said associated with that, but we've done our part to do some advocacy. It's falling on deaf ears, but we will continue to push for measures that help municipalities help our residents. Utility relief is a significant one. I've received certain calls and communications regarding what we're doing about utilities. That's a main cost driver for a lot of the residents and businesses when they're having little operations. So we're doing our effort on that. We're doing outreach at the local level with the county and state government to to do two things. One, position Yellow Springs to be able to apply for some of that local funding, but also to shape the agenda and the strategy of how those funds will be used. So at the state level, there's money with the Community Development Block Grant that has been distributed as part of the stimulus package, and we hope to have that accessible. One resource that we can announce now is that we have applied for FEMA funding, and we will be able to be reimbursed for some of the expenditures we've had related to COVID under this emergency. So we have our application and with FEMA, and we're in the process of organizing all of our expenses and submit that for reimbursement. So that is some good news that the administration here, the team, Colleen, Johnny, Brian Carlson, Ruth Ann, the team's working hard to make sure that we're going after these financial opportunities so that we can help our community. So I want to thank my team for putting in the effort to do those things. That's it on my end, Brian. So I want to make an announcement around questions and how to submit questions. There's several ways you can submit a question to the town hall and to all the speakers that we heard from today. There's the YouTube chat box. There's the call-in number, which is 937-767-3402, and you should be able to see that number right above there. So call in your question or submit it via chat. For those of you that are joining us via Zoom, you can raise your hand or type it into the chat box. Following council rules, I will ask you to state your name and your relationship to the village. So on YouTube, you may.
I'm sorry, Josue, I just wanted to am I on?
Yes, you're on.
Sorry, I just wanted to interject. If you wanted to follow normal council processes where if anyone is commenting on the reopening or mask wearing, that's directed to that discussion item.
Okay.
Give that to you, but that is normal process.
Okay, so thank you, Judy, for that reminder. So if you have questions related to what we've talked about here in the virtual town hall, we welcome those. However, if you have a particular question about anything on the agenda, I ask that you hold on to your question for when we're discussing that particular item. So we will now open the question. So we have some questions now. I will go through the list. First question, this is from Kellyanne Tracy, a resident. Could there be updates when business closed their doors? I think this is a question for Karen. Karen, you've done a great job at maintaining a list of what businesses are open and what level of service that they're providing. Are you able to answer this question?
Well, I took the question to mean if businesses are actually closing permanently. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, we're doing everything possible to communicate with, to keep a running list. What we have it on our website. It's called Essential Yellow Springs on yellowspringsohio.org, and it has as close as we can keep track to what the business status is, whether they're doing delivery, carry out, curbside pickup now that's allowed for retail, appointment retail. So we're doing our best to keep track of it.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, second question is from Kate Hamilton, resident. Several of you have stressed that our state is on a stay-at-home order until May 29th. Why can't it be put out there as that instead of welcoming visitors? There should be zero tourism until after May 29th. I think this is a question for all of us. Who wants to take a first turn at it? Well, I would say from our position, we're not actively promoting that we're open for tourism or open for the recreational activities. I think you've seen the signs that were put on around the Yellow Springs at all the three entry points, or the three main entry points. The stay-home order is in effect essential business only. So from the government side, that's the message we put out there. We will continue to put that message out there. We want to encourage everyone to practice all the protective measures that they can. The face mask, particularly, you've heard us in all these virtual town halls. We've been talking about all the protective measures when wearing the mask became a recommendation. We also put that out there. I see Karen's hand up, so I'm gonna defer to Karen on the follow-up. Karen?
Probably the biggest communication tool to the village is the Chamber's Facebook page. The message, we have a banner at the top, staying at the top of our Facebook page that basically says, follow the stay-at-home order. And so, we, as I said, we have done nothing to market or to encourage people to visit Yellow Springs. We have actually told people to stay away from Yellow Springs, which is the antithesis of what we are supposed to do. But our businesses support it and everybody in the community supports it. I think actually Mayor Pam said it best, that we don't have a moat around Yellow Springs, and there is no way to tell people they are not allowed to come to Yellow Springs. So there are mixed messages related to outdoor recreation, and we do have lots of outdoor recreation available. And not every community is lucky enough to have a bike trail, a safe bike trail running through the center of it. So I think everybody on this call, everybody is doing their best to discourage, excuse me, I just saw Chief Altman hold up Darth Vader's mask. So we're doing everything we can to keep it just locals here, and I'm happy to be able to be doing that to support the community.
Josue, excuse me, this is Colin. Hey, just also on the, this is a completely confusing mix that the state has put out, but they did change it. It is no longer a stay-at-home order. It is now a stay safe order, which is completely semantics, but there is a difference because it basically exempts you from staying safe at home if you're doing one of the exemptions: going to retail, going outside, going to work. So it's a very confusing thing from the state, and it's been extremely confusing for us on the regulatory side, for fire, for health, for police, because I think even at ODH, they're a little confused by it themselves. But people are perfectly within their rights under the new stay safe order to go shop, which does seem bizarre. But other than that, they want you to be home unless you're at work or outside recreating. But just don't go to a bar. So that's a little confusing, but unfortunately, that's the way it is. So we've just got to figure out how to navigate it and get through.
Thank you, Colin, for that reminder and the change of word. And, for us as the professionals, it can be confusing for us, right? And this is our business. We're in this day in and day out. And so I can see the frustration from our residents and visitors on where the confusion, how this confusion gets generated, and who knows what they should be doing. But our message is clear. Stay home or stay safe at home. If you're not engaged in these business activities, stay safe at home.
And I'll add that I think one thing we've heard in response to this question is consensus around a slow transitioning in this reopening. I think we need to remember that more education around why we wear masks continues to be important. I know that some people, are purposefully thwarting it, but a lot of people are still learning about the protocol. We've already heard from a lot of our local businesses that they will not be reopening right away. But giving us this opportunity to transition into that will be really important. We also will talk a little bit about the legal side of doing something different from the governor and Department of Health's directives. There are limits in that regard, and again, I think that we've got to consider how we balance some of these different interests. But what is very important is that we are not rushing into this, and we're learning how to manage safety better and better.
Brian, you gave us a great segue into the next question, and this one's from Megan Bachman, Yellow Springs News, also a resident. I understand that the village cannot pass a mask requirement for customers to shop. However, could the village and chamber coordinate with every downtown shop to agree to a customer mask requirement so that visitors don't take their frustration out on individual businesses for that decision? That's a great question.
Yeah, well, and I'll let Karen speak to this as well, but that is exactly what we're doing. So we started meeting 2 weeks ago about reopening. And one of the things that maybe you're all aware of is how quickly evolving and reactive the external environment is. And within that, we're trying to be as proactive as we can and respond well. So we have been planning for this, and that's why you saw that great signage that's been worked on, and there's been a lot of feedback on. Karen, do you want to talk more about coordination?
I think that's exactly what we're doing. It's what we're doing, and we're going to be providing the signage. As an organization, we can't demand anything of our members or of the local businesses. And I guess I will defer to the conversation that's going to happen a little bit later during the meeting as to what power the village has to do that.
And just so everybody's clear, this planning has involved Chief Altman, Chief Carlson, Josue. So it's been a nice collaboration between business and the chamber and the village entities, and also the community foundation.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Moving on to our next question. This is from Melissa Tinker, resident. Regarding honoring the stay-at-home order, will you be keeping the parking lots closed? Our strategy with the parking lots has been in the spirit of what the stay-home order have been. So a primary activity or goal of the stay-home order is to reduce the number of people that are congregating or interacting with each other. So our strategy of closing the parking lots early were in line with that strategy to reduce the density. So we want to reduce the opportunities of people coming into town and parking and congregating and taking part of leisure or recreational activities. So we've kept with that strategy. We're going to use a similar strategy as we gradually lift the restrictions. So as more business activities start happening in our community, we're going to ease up the parking restrictions to accommodate the volume and the number of people that are coming into town or coming into the downtown area to do business. So today we opened the John Bryan Center, a portion of it, not all of it. We opened a portion so that there are more parking spaces available for the increased volume of visitors or clients coming down to the downtown area, and so they're not all bunched up together and creating exposure opportunities. So we're spreading out the parking assets so we can accommodate the volume of visitors and customers coming to the downtown area. That's the same strategy come May 12th when consumer retail and services business are able to open. Come May 12th, that's going to be an increase in volume of vehicles. And so we'll open up portions of the two other lots that are now closed to accommodate for that traffic and visitors. We find that's necessary to both support the business activity while also creating an environment that can accommodate this increase in volume, and you'll have a wider density, but it's spread out. So that's our strategy with the parking lots. Anyone want to add anything to that? Okay, I have a follow-up question from Megan Bachman. So are all the businesses on board? I imagine that this is a follow-up to the mask, coordinating a mask requirement for the businesses. Karen or Brian, do you want to weigh in?
I would say that from what I'm hearing from the business community that all are encouraging mask wearing. They will be wearing themselves. Whether every business is going to absolutely require every person who walks in the door to wear a mask, I don't know at this point. It hasn't gone that far. Again, the goal of the chamber, the goal of this messaging campaign is that the expectation in Yellow Springs is that you wear masks, that will then translate to wearing them on the sidewalks, not just when you're in a particular business. So that's the message we want to convey. And I think we're trying to make it a cool statement, a fashion statement, a respectful statement. We're getting a lot of our merchants are doing branded masks, and those are becoming quite popular. Yellow Springs Brewery has already sold 200 branded masks. I know Wildflower is doing branded masks, as is Yellow Springer Teas. So we're trying to make it a cool thing and provide masks at businesses in Yellow Springs that people can buy.
And Karen, I think it's also worth emphasizing related to several of these questions that what we've been hearing on these meetings with local businesses is how concerned they are about our local community and our residents. And so there is, caution and safety first from everybody that's talking about this. And so we really are, thinking about what is the best way to move slowly and thoughtfully.
All right, I have 3 more questions. 2 of them are follow-up and one's a new line of question. From Kay Hamilton, are you catering to visitors versus citizen?
We just
would
answered
say-
that.
Excuse me, Brian?
I was going to say we just answered that, but you can.
Yes, I have more to add to it. I think, there's an increased volume. One of the things I saw from Saturday's activity, it was great weather and a lot of people came to downtown area. We had a overflow issue. Did we generate more parking tickets? We did, but there's also a problem that it created in the surrounding neighborhoods. There's cars overflowing into this area. Mills Lawn parking lot was full. People just decided to park there. And so we see this increased volume of vehicles coming and it's going to overflow. So we can help alleviate some of those issues by creating more of these assets. And this is for everyone, the residents or citizens that need to go to the downtown area for business or whatever activity, as it is for the business patrons that are coming to do business in Yellow Springs. Follow-up question from Kellyanne. Are the government offices remaining closed to villagers? The John Bryant Center will remain closed, perhaps until beyond the May 12th. We're looking at a May 18th opening date. Now, all of our residents still have access to all the government services, whether that's the police department, that lobby's open 24/7, so police services are fully operational as they were before COVID-19. Our utilities window, while it's not open to the public, we are still serving our customers, and those services are available to all of our residents via phone, email, and we're being responsive to all the requests that come in. Planning and zoning permits, we're still receiving permits for zoning and answering any zoning inquiries. So all of our government services are fully operational. So our building may be closed, but we're still providing all the services. This question, that third question I have, I'm not sure if it's meant for me or it's a public question, and it's from Dino, business owner. All the money that was earmarked from Home Inc., can some of that money be retracted and used for the village as part of the economic growth for the community?
This is Lisa. I can speak to this. The monies that are earmarked for Home Inc. were not allocated out of the Economic Development Fund, so it's a completely different line item. The senior housing, we specifically voted that would come out of the lodging tax, so it's a completely separate pool. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Lisa. I have 3 additional questions, and this may be the last questions we take because we have additional council business. Summer McGuire, resident. My husband owns a local business. Are all employees required to wear masks in a given business? No, right? They're all being encouraged to ask their patrons to wear masks, but it's not. Sorry, this is for employees. The employee, these are orders given by the state, and yes, employees are required to wear masks. Colin, do you want to jump in on more details?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I think as everyone remembers, Monday of last week, Governor DeWine announced that all employees and visitors to stores would have to wear masks. And on Tuesday of last week, that changed. So now we are encouraging everyone who visits a shop or store or whatever to wear a mask, but employees must wear masks while at work. That there are some exceptions for that. And those are contained in the order, but you, if you are working in a store, you have to have a fabric or paper mask or something on. And there are sometimes they can take them off if there's no one there. We can help you figure that out when our inspector visits your shop, and make it as good of environment as possible for your employees.
Okay, thank you, Colin. And last question, will there be more frequent emptying of the trash containers and maybe more containers? The one of the depots are overflowing. We're working on that. We will get back to our regular operations around trash management. I don't see that being an issue. I think with this weekend, we were caught by surprise, and you know, I don't want to say that we didn't anticipate the large crowds, but we really did not anticipate the overflow of trash and the amount of trash that was produced over the weekend. Not just the amount of trash, but the negligence by some individuals of just dumping their trash where they did. So we are working on that and we'll work through that. So thank you. All right, with that, Brian, I'll hand it over to you for the rest of the agenda.
All right, thanks, Josue. And I might just add one other comment. You know, we talked about advocacy with our federal, state, and county legislators, but I also want to mention that some of the things that the village is getting requests for are really more in the purview of Greene County Public Health under the state health department. So, you know, just being mindful that while there is some local control, under a state of emergency, the governor's directives and the Department of Health have a lot of say in what happens. And so related to that, I know Jillian shared with us earlier that they understand some of the challenges on a nice day like this past Saturday, and they're also looking into ways that they can help support keeping people safe. So great town hall. Thanks everyone that joined us. Feel free to not stay for the rest of the meeting, but a lot of what we were asked about is what we're going to talk about next with reopening. But before we get there, let's talk about the consent agenda, which is the minutes from our last meeting, April 20th. And I would love to get a motion to approve the consent agenda. All right. Okay, somebody's waving.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, I got a motion from Laura and a second from Mary Ann. Yeah, we'll have to check, Judy, and see if waves are acceptable. So
right. Yeah, really.
We wouldn't have to get off of mute. Okay, thank you. And all those in favor, we'll do a roll call. Judy?
Yeah, Stokes,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Next, we have a review of the agenda. Anything that we need to add, modify, or delete from our agenda?
There's one thing that I would like to add, if it's not going to be included, which is about the large trash pickup and whether it's going to happen.
Yes.
And when.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's just add that to old business as kind of a manager's report update. Okay.
Okay, or it could be opening, well, village reopening, wherever.
Okay, well, I'll let Josue kind of have a choice there. Okay, so spring cleanup and large trash. Okay, anything else? All right, so Mary Ann, we're up with petitions and communications.
Yes, we had a number of petitions and communications, all of them regarding the impact of the coronavirus. Some were from residents and others were from businesses. So I'm not going to say what every person said, but summarizing the concerns were really what's already been talked about. I think safety was a huge concern, and as well as the concern about businesses being able to be opened and the negative financial impact that this has had on businesses. So there was a letter from Don and Christine Beard, a letter from Matthew Carson, a letter from Skip Leeds, letter from Marcia Walgren, Tony Berry of Superfly, Kim Lemkow of Little Fairy, Kate Monahan from Dark Star, Danielle Mershon from Wildflower Boutique, Kate Hamilton, Jamie Sharp from the Yellow Springs Toy Store, Mark Heiss from, forget what the name of his business, Yellow Springs Tees, and Moira Laughlin. Think that's it.
All right. Thank you, Mary Ann. And yeah, I will say just part of that summarizing, it probably is good to highlight that we had a proposal to not reopen any businesses in Yellow Springs until June 1st. And we had a lot of responses from businesses that said they did not agree with that proposal. So we really had a pretty good balance of feedback on that particular topic.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say that some businesses, have been doing some business. Others want to wait until later in the month. So it really was a variety of business responses in terms of when that particular business wanted to open.
All right, thanks, Mary Ann. We're going to move into our legislation, and we have two items that relate to renewing our employee insurance. This happens periodically. So, Judy, why don't we read in Resolution 2020-17 by title only?
Yes, this is authorizing the village manager to renew health insurance for village employees for the 2021 plan year.
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
I move.
A second?
Second.
Okay, I heard Laura. Josue, do you want to talk about, is this you talking about this?
Yes, this is me, Brian. I wanna reference the proposal that's in your package. So the village has received renewal proposal from current health provider. The initial proposal was provided at an increase to premiums at 9%. We formally requested our insurance broker, McGowan and Barbender, to solicit proposals from other insurance provider. A summary of the proposals received is included in today's packet. The options for a new plan with comparable service were not financially feasible nor attractive. Hence, we've decided to continue to work with Anthem, and we've modified our current plan to limit the premium increase to 6% versus 9%. The management team has discussed the plans and have recommended the option 1 plan with a 6% increase. That's for the medical services. For the dental services, we're also making a change to the dental insurance. The new plan provided by Unum Dental is overall a better plan with all the preventative features as our current plan, and includes a new feature that allows up to $250 of unspent annual allowance to be carried over into the next year as an annual allowance expense. I encourage you to look at the proposals attached in the packet. And this shows a summary of the proposals that we received. I'm available to speak in greater detail or answer any questions you may have.
All right, thanks, Josue. And so the resolution we're looking at now is related to the healthcare plan.
Correct, the medical.
Yeah, and so are there any questions? Yes, Lisa.
Yeah, so in reviewing this, I did some industry trend research to try to interpret whether the annual cost per employee increase, like where it fit in terms of the trends in the industry. And what I learned from a review of 4 different national consulting firms that focus on insurance premiums is that the average annual increase for this particular period was anticipated to be between 5 and 6.5%. Unfortunately, continuing to outpace inflation and employee earnings, which really does point to the dysfunction of our healthcare system, but does point to this particular reinsurance opportunity to be, not inflationary impact on the employees. I'd also point out that the industry trends are that this should be slowing when compared to 2015 to 2018, when the jacks in cost to both employers and employees was just through the roof. So this sort of increase, I would project, would be continuing year over year over the next couple of years, and is in keeping, if not only slightly on the low side of national trends.
Laura?
Josue, can you tell us sort of what kind of plan this is? Because I'm aware that there's a big difference in costs between PPO plans, HMO plans. And I even have an additional question. Many people, including myself, go on the healthcare.gov for a choice of healthcare plans. And some employers are subsidizing employees to do that they're paying the cost. And I don't know exactly how all of that works with, is it income or not, et cetera. But can you comment on this topic? Because the next topic we're going to cover is the financial outlook for the village, partly due to COVID-19. A lot due to COVID-19. But I hate to say it, but we have to look at ways that maybe we cut costs first and keep people as much as we can employed.
Yes, I can answer some of that, Laura. If I understand it, there's 3 questions on there. What kind of plan it is? What healthcare options may be available, is that right? And then the third piece, accessing the healthcare exchange and subsidizing that insurance premiums directly to the employee?
Yes. These are other options, right?
Right. That would be part of your second question. So in your first question, what kind of plan is this? This is a PPO plan. So PPO plan, there's 2 major types of health insurances. You've got your HMOs, your healthcare managed organizations, where your providers are part of the single network model. Sometimes those single network model, they work directly for the HMO, or they have a strong affiliation with the HMO, and they almost exclusively provide services to the HMO. While the PPO is a network of individual providers. There may be different practitioners, and they're not owned by the organization. They're contracted to provide specific services. The PPO also has an out-of-network provider. So you can go to anyone, as long as they're licensed to operate and provide a service, you can go to them and you have access to those services. The price arrangement or the contract arrangements are different between affiliated providers and non-affiliated providers. So a non-affiliated provider, they set their own price, and the insurance would only pay a certain portion of it, and the employee or the participant is responsible for the unpaid portion of the insurance. So this is a PPO plan. This is the plan that I just described. Our employees or participants can go to network providers or out-of-network provider, and they receive the health insurance benefit. And I'll cover the current plan that we have. Our network, we have a high deductible plan, which allow us also to contribute to a health savings account. So being a PPO and high deductible plan, there's a deductible associated with it. Right now, the individual deductible is $2,700 for individual $5,400 for the family. And the total out-of-pocket deductible and copays is $4,000 for the individual, $8,000 for the family. And related to services, the services being the physician visit, preventive care, then the specialty services such as professional services, inpatient services, outpatient facility, emergency rooms, urgent care. I'll break those into two different components. On office visits, everything is covered after the deductible. On preventative care, that's covered in full. So your preventative care is covered outside of the deductible. For those specialty services, our current plan covers 100% of that expense after the deductible. So for example, if you have an emergency room, a visit to emergency room, if you went in for a day or 10 days or 30 days, the expense for the employee is limited to up to the deductible. Once the deductible is exhausted, 100% of that is covered by the insurance. So that's our current plan. What we are transitioning to, because of the cost, to maintain our same plan would have cost us 9% increase, and that's a total of $44,000. Sorry, that's a total increase of $43,633 an increase. We decided to work within the Blue Anthem options, and we opted for option 1, and this is included in your packet. I believe is page 9 in your packet. The option 1, which comes at a 6% increase, increases the deductible from $2,700 to $3,000 for individual, $5,400 for the family to $6,000 for the family under option 1. The overall out-of-pocket deductible with copays is limited to $5,000 per individual and $10,000 for the family. All other coverage services remain in place. So preventative visit or preventative care is covered, and then professional services such as those ER visits or urgent care or specialty service is covered 100% after the deductible. So that's the first I guess the answer to the first question. Anything on that first question?
And then the village also gives the employees the amount of the deductible, whether they're single or family. So if you're family, we're also funding the deductible.
Not the entire amount. We make a contribution to the health savings account, and I believe that is also included in your packet on what is the HSA plan contribution. So for a single individual, that is $1,750. For a family, that's $3,250. So doesn't cover the full deductible, but it does cover a portion of it, significant portion of it.
And I don't need you to go into detail, Josue, but in general, a comparable plan is an HMO with a high deductible. We fund part of we essentially give the employees part of the deductible. What percentage difference would there be in cost?
I don't know the exact numbers, but because of how the HMOs work as a structure and as a healthcare organization, you're limited in choices for medical services. So they tend to be cheaper than a PPO, but the trade-off is that you pay less for your services because you have less freedom of choice. And that's the catchphrase that the PPOs use, right? You have the freedom of choice. You get to go wherever you want, whatever physician you want. And they may be in network and out of network, but you have some coverage. With an HMO plan, you have to go with the affiliated providers, only the providers that are within that network. So they tend to cost less, but you have less choices. And that could be a market issue. In this area, we have two key players, Premier Health and Caring Health, and so you've got few players. If you're in a larger city, you may have more options. So the freedom of choice is affected by the market in which you're accessing service. But the shorter answer to your question is yes, overall HMO plans are cost less, but there's a trade-off that is being done for that service costing less. I think that was part of that answers your question, second question and third question, Laura, is that right?
Yeah, but you didn't get any quotes on an HMO plan.
I did not. I after speaking with you, I did try to get some quotes, but I needed to engage more parties than just a call. The process to get a firmer pricing requires a lot more work than the time I had since you and I spoke on Friday about getting price points. But I can tell you that the HMOs are cheaper, but they also come at significant trade-off. And if you're interested and council is interested, we can review this as for next year as we're looking at what offerings. And my interest would be to make sure that the healthcare needs of our employees are still met, and that we're offering a good health insurance, because I think health insurance is a necessary, and having a high quality health insurance is necessary, not just for the well-being of individuals, but also for the competitiveness of our company. We want to attract the best talent that we can attract, particularly when we don't have the wages that attract all the talent that we want to attract. So we need to offer benefits that are competitive to make sure that we both attract and retain the talent that we have and the talent that we need to deliver the high quality service that we want to deliver for our residents.
Not many cities are offering PPOs, would be my guess. But I don't know. I haven't done a survey. But
right. And I don't know either. I'm coming from a market where our company offer various plans. You had a PPO and you pay more, or you take the HMO and you pay less, and the employer was still contributing to those. But it was a different market. It had millions more residents in a smaller space. So we wouldn't know unless we went to market and shopped around. And that's something that I will consider.
And my last question was about, and I know some employers do this, they give their employees the amount of money that their plan would cost on healthcare.gov. And there's a wide range of plans, including the one I'm on, that I'm not tied into a certain network. It's more whether the physicians are accepting that insurance.
Correct. And they're affiliated with that network.
Right. Right. The network, but it's not limited to like Kettering, or Premier. So it is more kind of functions like a PPO. But I just wondered if city, what you've looked at in terms of utilizing the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. I know the market from other work that I've done, and I think that's something that we will be open to it. I think it does give employee the freedom of choice. If they want a Browns plan or a Mater plan or what was often called a Cadillac plan, if they wanted a Cadillac plan, the employer contributes a portion of it, and they're willing to pay more for a plan that's tailored to them. And I think that's an option. I will explore that option and see how the interest it would be and how it will work for our workforce.
This is Lisa. I think for this year, though, this is a stable proposal, particularly since it's an election year. And I think the future of the Affordable Care Act is uncertain depending on how we move forward with the president. And I'd also like to do a time check given where we are on the agenda.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments related to the healthcare insurance? Okay, so I think before we vote, the main thing I'm hearing, Josue, is that maybe there might be some interest in next year looking at it a little bit more with you, and so we can talk about that in 6 months. All right. So if there are no other questions, I will we'll do a roll call. Judy?
Yes. McQueen?
Yes.
Stokes?
Yes.
Curlis?
No.
Krieger,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And then next we've got resolution 2020-18, which we can also read in by title only.
Okay, this is authorizing the village manager to enter into a 12-month contract with Unum for dental insurance for village employees.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Stokes, and a second?
Second,
And Mary Ann, second. Okay, so Josue already explained the dental program, and Josue, anything else you want to highlight on this one?
I would say that the dental, we're able to find a comparable plan with an extra feature at a lower price. So we went from looking at a plan that costs us $74.12 per month per employee to costing us $64.85 per employee with a better option, particularly that carryover option. So this is a whole 12.5% less. So I'm really happy with this option, and we're providing a better service to our employees at a lower price.
All right, great. Questions or comments about the dental plan? Okay. I don't see any, so Judy, let's go ahead and call the roll.
All right, Curlis,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
McQueen,
I could read her lips. She said yes.
thank you, Stokes,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we're now going to move into old business. And as Laura mentioned, we're going to have our regular update on village finances. And Josue, I'll let you start, and then if you need to pass it on to Colleen.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Brian. I'm going to cover the utilities report before the overall budget, because I think you may have more questions on the budget. Is that okay, Brian? Okay. And I'm going to share my screen so that you can follow along if you need to. All right, you should be able to see my screen up on your screen. All right, so we're talking about municipal utilities report, the COVID-19 impact on collections. The overall financial impact that we're seeing is that our collection rate for March invoices is down a whole 17.5%. An average collection rate up to before COVID-19 was 99.5%. So there's a major difference here. On dollar amounts, the average invoice amount before COVID-19 was $559,881. However, I want to note that this is not seasonally adjusted, so there are weather elements and other business conditions to factor in that we couldn't adjust them for this report. But I want to reference that point because I was also asked, what are average invoices under COVID-19? So we've seen that activity drop. Overall, on the invoicing amounts, we're seeing an increase from March of 2019. So our load, or whether a water demand or electricity demand, has increased, and we think that that's because of the demographics or the economic factors of our community, that we have a lot of residents sheltering in place, and so they're using more electricity and more water, and that's perhaps enough to outweigh the low decrease coming from businesses being closed. So we see that drop on average invoice amounts go from 559 to 537, and that's a difference of 22,000. But when comparing March invoices to March of 2019, that's overall an increase of around $8,000. This is what the trends, the collection rates look like. This is just another way of representing that information. We saw at 17% decrease right here between February and March. So a big dip there, and we know that this is a real issue. You know, one of the things that obviously what's contributing to this is the COVID-19 pandemic and emergency that we're in. but also we're not having an aggressive collection strategy. We're not doing collections, and we're also not penalizing individuals for not making payments. So that I think all of those things are contributing. What does it mean in terms of financial dollars? These are the data for those charts, and then my next slide shows it a better what the impact is on collection. So this looks at our age receivables in days. This is the data. So looking at our outstanding invoices, that's 2,602 invoices of the total billed amount, and the total billed amount is right over here. These are the invoices, and this is the total billed amount. So we billed $537,335, and we collected $459,368. So what that uncollected rate, or that amount that's uncollected, gets put into the age receivables. So we're looking at $76,741 that are receivables due, that are due 0 to 30 days. Looking at our 31 to 60 days, that's $42,579. And you see that the following age receivables, that drops significantly. The 61 to 90 days is 13,000. These are folks that had outstanding collections, and we have withdrawn our disconnect efforts or other collection measures because of the COVID-19, but they're still carrying a balance over 2 months, over 2 to 3 months. And then you have folks that are carrying a balance 91 days to 120 days. And then we have this big age receivable of over $500,000. This is age receivables we've kept in the books. Most of this is before our policies were implemented to hold landlords accountable for any defaults or overdue bills on from their tenants. So at some point, we're going to come to council to take an action on this $500,000 to either write it off, or we sell it to a collection agency, or we send it off for additional collection methods. But this is our age receivables. Any question on these two items before I go to my next slide and talk about policy concerns? Okay. So on the policy conflicts, we have a village ordinance that hold landlords responsible for overdue and defaults on utilities. But we're also within that ordinance, as a business practice, we allow landlords to be able to control their losses by restricting payment plans for tenants and renters as they're overdue. The question that landlords have posed is, how can you hold me as a landlord accountable under your ordinances if you do not allow me to restrict my losses by restricting payment plans and forcing tenants to pay up or have their utilities shut off? So that's a policy conflict consideration that we need to discuss. It's a valid concern from landlords, because tenants could be taking on this massive liability on the utilities that at some point the landlord would not, either the landlord or us would not be able to recoup, and the landlord will be left responsible for those utilities. I'll leave that there, and I'll go to my budget presentation. Okay, here's the budget presentation. I'm going to cover the overview and then hand it off to Colleen, who can go into as much detail as you would like on the particulars about the budget adjustment we made. So overall, the impact to the general fund from revenue losses are as followed. In real estate taxes, we're looking at $66,500, which is a 7% estimate reduction, according to David Graham, who is the county auditor. The city income tax, we're seeing $180,000 in reductions. This is 10% estimate based on Colleen Harris's adjustment. RETA expects a reduction of $160,000. We have reason to believe that RETA's model doesn't consider the high concentration of destination-based businesses that we have that had been affected by COVID-19. So Colleen very wisely added an additional cushion to this to account for some of that and give us a little bit more conservative estimate. The lodging tax, we expect a $22,000 revenue loss there. This is primarily looking at collections of when of the timing of our collections. The full impact here is unknown. If we don't see Airbnb activities or hotel activities pick up into the later part of the year, this impact could be greater. Overall, we're looking at around $50,000 in total lodging tax dollars. That's going to depend on when some of these businesses are back to operating. So we've got that $22,000 figure in for right now. On local government and tangibles, these are distributions by local government. 40,000 and losses there. This is per David Graham, who's our Greene County auditor, and he has a Greene County budget committee that's making these recommendations. So we reduced that 40,000. That's 40% change. So we're looking at that. We also have a rollback and homestead reduction of 9,500. And this is again per David Graham. So our preliminary total revenue losses are $350,000. Any questions on the revenue losses? Okay, how are we going to make up this $350,000? I wish the answer was as simple as this one slide, but it is not. This one slide is the summary of it. We managed to reduce our overall budget from $4,160,071 to $3,808,826. Sorry, $3,808,826. That's a total reduction of $351,245. So these are the summary numbers. I'll hand it off to Colleen to give us a summary. And if you have any questions or requests for specific information, she'll be able to provide them. Any questions on this before I hand it off to Colleen? Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Josue. You detailed everything to the point of what we're working on. We started our budget reduction meetings on April 9th, and we've had 3 revisions since then. As we keep getting updated with the auditor's offices and our local government entity, Dick or Mr. Graham, we still get together and work on this. So to keep it short, it's been a long meeting. I can entertain any questions. Most of the reduction cuts have to come out of the general fund. So the first things that we started working on were training and supplies, and really went through every line item to reduce the best that we could. We were still coming up very short. So when you get to the transfers from the general fund, that transfers to the streets and parks, that's where we went next. So we did cut 75,000 from transfers that we had set up in our capital equipment, parks, recreation, improvement, and facilities that were fund builders. So we did take that out. That was 75,000. Then it was about 200,000 out of the streets. And most of the streets, again, are the capital projects that Johnny had scheduled to do, that he can still do some in-house. We can do some maybe hopefully next year. And he's still able to touch on quite a few of them in a limited mode. So that is how we came up with, at this point, about the 350,000 to get it back to balance. Again, moving forward, since this changes all the time, every month we'll be reviewing. Probably the second half of the year, we'll come back with another idea, is if it's gotten better, worse, if we need to do some more cuts, if we can put some things back in projects at the end of the year. But right now we have it balanced. What we don't want to do is wait until we've spent the appropriations and then to find out that our revenue was not there, and then we had we just wouldn't be able to do that. So that's where we are. If there's any questions I can help you with, or Josue, it'll be back to you. Any questions?
Colleen, can you say something about the kind of projects that were in the streets budget that aren't going to be done or are going to be more limited?
I can pull that up, but it takes me just one quick second here.
Colleen, are you able to share your screen?
If you show me how or tell me how.
Okay.
Have the screen up.
You want me to go over to you?
Do I do, wait a minute, I think I know. No, maybe you need to help me. If you can,
Well, there, I was just saying should be a big green arrow at the bottom of the screen. It says share screen.
I just lost you. I did see that. Will you help me this way? I lost the screen.
Oh,
No, I'm still there. There we go.
which one are you sharing?
This one. Great, the capital. Yes. Thank you. Can you see the screen here where my mouse is?
Yeah.
Working?
Yes.
Okay, so what Johnny was working on the projects that we were able to reduce, and I'm gonna pull that up. And here we go. So under sidewalk repairs, we had originally had 50,000. He reduced it down to 10. We had reduced the curb replacement repair, again, a 20,000 down to 10. We are still keeping sidewalk trip hazards. We're keeping in the little bit of blacktop roller that he's working on and the crack ceiling. The other project, stormwater, he reduced down from 75,000 to 35. Those were the main items. We also had several other minor ones. And then the rest came out of the regular appropriations, the other supplies, the training, and there were training that was mandated, but most of it was in the street fund.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Okay, don't see any questions.
Okay.
Anything else?
I have one question clarifying, please. So the projected reduction in revenue is based only what they know as of April 13th, is that right? It's not to the end of the year, is that correct?
These reductions are what we needed to reduce. And I'm sorry, not till the end of the year.
I mean, I guess I'm asking, will we get another memo from the auditor and Rita saying, well, we're now projecting this much more? I mean, what are we?
We could, because these numbers came in so quick and everyone is working hard to get their best guess. As we monitor what actually comes in, I think these figures have been pretty, they came from good sources and they should be pretty accurate. If everybody gets back to work, maybe the impact on the income tax may not be as high, but they also caution the fact that there might be delays in receiving it, which might be a cash flow. So it's unknown, but these are what we've been told to and been guided with, trying to cover that so we can stay balanced.
Yes, and to help guide that, add additional context to Colleen's response, the explanation that we received from Rita, I've shared the document on your screen, so you should be able to see the model. Here's how they're projecting revenue losses for 2020. For the for months 3 to 6, that's March through June, their model projects a 20% loss. This is based on the unemployment numbers that have been reported. For months 7 through 9, it's expected to have a 10% loss on individual income taxes. Months 10 through 12, that's a 5%. This is their model. So for March through June, a 20% unemployment, so 20% reduction on income tax payments. And then the expectation is come July through August, that 10% of that workforce is going back to the job market, to the labor force. And then in months 10 through 12, an additional 5%. So This is showing a recovery of about 8 months to a year to have that 20% of unemployed individuals go back to the workforce. That's their current model with individuals, and then there's the withholding loss. I appreciate the effort that they put into the model. I think I don't have any data to show to question. I think they've done a good job within the constraints that they have, and those constraints are that this is their best estimate. No one really knows the full effect of what this will be, or what the economic impact will be. So it could be more. It could be more. It could be less. And we just don't know. So to Colleen's point, this is the best estimate that we have so far. Laura, are you able to see the model on your screen?
I'm not sure. I see Colleen's numbers, and I'm not sure that's what you're talking about, but I understand it's going to change. Look, when the second half real estate taxes come due and a whole bunch of people can't pay, it'll get adjusted again, you know?
Right.
So,
I just wanted to fill in, I got a call from, Johnny is participating and watching the meeting. When I was showing you the capital projects and going through there, that was not all of it. This is his regular budget, and he did reduce the professional services in the street fund $100,000 to do less blacktop projects. So as you can see, everything in the red are also reductions. So it's not all the capital. Our capital was 201. It's down to 98. That was the first screen. But
Colleen, I'm sorry, we're not seeing your screen anymore. So if you want to point me to where you want to look at those, right here. If you can see my screen.
You are right here, this under professional services.
So Colleen is talking about this piece right here where we went from $240,000 down to $140,000. This is the less blacktop projects.
And that is inclusive in that $200,000 street reduction. But that's where we came up with our 350,000 was a lot of different line items and some bigger projects.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? So I think the one thing I'm hearing that, as we continue to have these updates as part of every council meeting is that in this rapid response environment, we need to, of course, get updates about income tax collections when we have that data, about property tax collections when we have that data, and so forth, and continue to monitor. So, all right. Thanks, Colleen. Thank you, Josue. And we are now going to move into our discussion about the pathway to reopening our downtown and also recreational activities. Josue?
Thank you, Brian. We touched base a little bit on this earlier as we were doing the virtual town hall regarding what has been our strategy. We took early action to close down our parking lots because we needed to have some intervention strategy to stop the high density and the concentration in individuals who would be overlapping several social circles and creating an environment where the spreading of the virus would happen and would happen rapidly. What is the strategy or the strategy to this path of reopening the village businesses and recreational activity? Well, our strategy is in line with supporting the type of activities that the Governor DeWine is trying to encourage and restrict and monitor. So we're trying to align our strategy to be supportive of that activity. So as regarding to the May 1 openings and what's going to happen in May 12th, we're gradually lifting the restrictions on the different assets that we control to support those business activity, but not to the extent that we are overwhelming our community. And so put some restriction. And process and restrictions in place within our capabilities, right? I've heard from numerous individuals who want us to mandate masks, close down 68 on both ends, and have a checkpoint at both ends. It's those things are not possible, but there are things that we can do. We can restrict, have an impact on the density, and so we're slowly easing that up. So you can see from what we did today, we've opened the John Bryant Center to allow for additional parking to accommodate the additional volume. On May 12th, by the governor's order, on May 12th, consumer retail and services business will be allowed to open. That's a lot of our businesses, except for the bars and the restaurants, which are a significant portion of our destination economy, the food and entertainment businesses. Those will not be allowed to open, but those other businesses that are allowed to open, we're going to need to accommodate those business activity by easing up our parking restrictions. So our intent is come May 12th, we're going to lift some of the restrictions on the 2 additional parking lots to accommodate that volume and that. And the reason there is twofold. One, we don't want this high volume of vehicles overflowing into the residential community or parking where they're shooting door a space that cannot accommodate them. So we'll open up those parking amenities. In terms of other business things that we're doing, we have hand sanitizer stations in the downtown area. We have put in a request for additional hand sanitizer stations, and we'll set those up. That's part of our path to reopening village businesses. We're going to create additional hand sanitizing stations that will be available to the public. We've taken on the responsibility of managing those on a daily basis, refilling them and whatnot. So we will continue that effort for as long as we can. I'll say as long as we can, or as long as we need to. We don't know how long we will need to, but that's the solution that we have in place. Other things that we've done to help in the reopening of the business, we also implemented a strategy. What are the things, the pain points that our community are experiencing? Many of our citizens don't have access to internet. And right now in the stay-home orders, with folks not being able to leave their home, their only connection to the world is through the internet. And so we wanted to make sure that we create an additional access points. So with a partnership with the library, the schools, and Inveca, we, the village, and the community foundation, we, the village, have taken this leadership position of offering additional internet service to our citizens. So now the public library has an expanded wireless signal. It's named Yellow Springs Internet, so it's publicly available. We've also expanded the Wi-Fi signal, or added a new signal at the Yellow Springs School Board building. So there's a good cover area there in front of Mills Lawn and the area of Short Street and South Walnut. So these are things that we've been proactive about, making sure that we are supporting residents and the businesses as we look to open these activities. Recreational activities. Recreational activities are still not allowed. We know that a lot of them are happening, and we encourage that the hyper-local recreational activities, that folks participate in that. And what that means for us, this hyper-local, is explore the paths around your neighborhood. Mayor Pam has talked about numerous times about taking these wonderful hikes through the neighborhoods in town, and doing special notes about what she's experiencing on there. We want to encourage that. What we're trying not to do is encourage these large gatherings of people holding hands and walking down the bike path. It puts us in a difficult position, because we've seen as groups as large as 20 congregating, and they're all not 20. They all could be family members, but there's just no way of knowing, and it's in violation of the spirit of the stay safe at home order. So we're not actively promoting those recreational activities. That's something that the village is known for, and that's been on purpose, because they're just not manageable by us, and they are not in the spirit of the stay safe at home order. So with the recreational activities, we're waiting for additional guidelines so that we can ease up on those recreational activities. we know it's happening right now, and some of it has been an area of concern. This Saturday, weather was in the 70s. We had an unexpected large crowd of people come to Yellow Springs. They were at the Corner Cone and other facilities and just congregating in violation of the 6 feet distancing and no mask. And we've heard from many citizens that they are worried, that they're alarmed by some of this activity that they're experiencing. I'm grateful that Police Chief Brian St. Carlson jumped on this immediately and tried to do what he can within his power to ensure the 6 feet distance and encourage folks to distance themselves and take protective measures in a way that it's not, overbearing. So we're doing this activity, but the short of the recreational activities, we need to wait on the additional guidelines for how those things open. We have received word from the Greene County Public Health related to public restrooms. Their recommendation is that all public restrooms are to remain closed. This is the health authority making the recommendation. We're following it closely. So the public restroom at the train station is going to remain closed until public authority recommends us to do otherwise. We've received requests related to porta potties. We've considered that. We considered that early on when we decided to close the train station, and we were advised not to. It was a strong recommendation against it. We followed it, and we did not do porta potties. And we looked into it again, and the recommendation still holds. Do not do porta potties. They're a source of spreading the virus. So we're listening to the experts. We're following their recommendations on this. With that, I'll stop it there because I know you have questions, and that there's no easy solution to this. There's no right solution to it. Well, there are some right things to do, some best practices, and we are doing those things. There's a lot of gray space on when and how you do certain things, but overall, I want you to feel reassured that the administration, the team here is listening to expert advice. We are being creative what we can do. An example of that would be the hand sanitizer station. When we jumped on making that order, we couldn't find a supplier that would sell us a hand sanitizing station with a pole and just ready to serve. Our team got creative. We ordered dispensers and we made those stations because we needed to fulfill a demand. So I want you to know that the team here is thinking creatively and being proactive about all the ways that we can better serve our residents to keep them safe, while also ensuring that business activities could continue in some measure so that folks can put food on the table and pay rent and do some of the things that they need to do because they have no access to other resources. With that, I'll stop it there and answer
Thanks,
your
Josue. Yeah, I'll just mention and then have other council members questions or comments that the outcome of these discussions is to put some plans on paper in kind of a outline form so that it can be very clear what we're planning to do on May 12th, which I think after this discussion, we should be pretty clear on. The next thing seems to be the end of May / June 1st. And as Josue said, we're also looking at tying linking some of these changes to the activities or the changes in the governor's orders. So I think about that with any comments or questions so that we can decide, are there things that we still need to think about? Obviously, the big ones are parking, restrooms, hand sanitizing, masks. But I think that'll be helpful for the village team to think about what else do we need to get out there so people have knowledge about what to expect. So with that, Kevin, questions or comments?
Yeah. So in general, I support a slow response to opening up too much in general. I know we're gonna with respect to maybe the next topic in terms of live meetings, whatever you open up, I think the primary motivation right now is economic. So if there's an economic benefit to either a business opening or some other entity opening. I mean, that seems to be the rationale, for opening anything, as a matter of fact. I mean, all of us would like to just go out and run and play and get back to our lives as normal, but we can't. So I think the general message is everything remains shut down, but what slowly gets opened up are just those things that, can have a positive impact on the local or regional or state economy. So the comparison then is, if you were looking at opening up something like us going back to live meetings, I might be jumping the gun here. I would just ask the question of what's the economic benefit of doing so. I'm certainly in favor of everything that's been said in terms of being sensitive to the businesses and what their needs are, but there do need to be those standards of everyone applying personal protective measures when they're going into businesses. And I think that was Megan's question, so that one business or another wouldn't suffer as a result of not having a common standard.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Lisa Krieger?
So I think it will be very helpful for us to have our own roadmap that charts our course over the next couple of months, actually. I really make my recommendations based on science. And so, for example, while I am influenced by communications from community members about the importance of reopening the public restrooms, I also put first and foremost what I'm told by our health department about the significant risks that could be presented should we do that. But I want to acknowledge that, I know that the lack of them could lead people to, pee outside. And we don't really want that either. But I think we really need to, I never thought I would say that actually in a council meeting. You never know what these times bring you to say. But I really think we do need to be guided by science. I do wish that the governor had given more strict guidelines so that we could enforce those, and that the lack of those put us in a challenging situation. I appreciate what I think it was Josue's very opening comment when we first opened the town hall. And that is that we each have individual agency, and we need to be responsible for our own actions and know that the actions that we take are helping others in our community to stay healthy and even alive. And so no matter what another person is doing, we need to just be responsible for what we do as individuals and what we do as a council and what we do as a community. So I think having a very clear roadmap so the businesses in the community know what's going on, so that the citizens and community members know what's going on, will be a really helpful thing to have, knowing that it could change if there begins to be another spike and if we get different directions from the state. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point that, we've got the May 12th date, but then after that, it's more about, just sort of transitions. And again, we don't have all those dates in place. Laura, I saw you put one question in the chat, or a couple questions in the chat.
Yes, I think that with businesses serving food, even as takeout, as weather gets warmer, and I personally am very supportive of people using the great outdoors to get some relief from the isolation. And we need to continue to encourage people to do it responsibly with distancing, pulling up a mask or neck gaiter when they're close to people. But people are going to want to picnic. They're going to, and we hope, I suppose, that they buy food from the restaurants that are doing the carry out, and then go somewhere to eat it. And I've noticed signs on the businesses saying no restroom, go use the public restroom even. Subway has that sign if it's still up. And then we close the public restrooms. And I totally understand why you want to close the train station, but I guess I am wondering, with proper signage and sanitation available, whether people couldn't use a handicap porta-john. I think it would have to be one of those. I mean, when I go in the post office, I have something I'm covering my hand with to open the doors, you know? I mean, people are, you can only do so much. When I think we should continue to do a good job of educating people, but I don't think we want the police stopping people at the borders. And I also am worried a lot about that we think we know who belongs here and who doesn't, who's a visitor and who isn't, whose family who lives on the outskirts or in Fairborn or Springfield, Xenia, but they have family here. I mean, I just don't think we know who should be here and who shouldn't. And so I think we have to continue to educate the public how to be safe when they come to this community. And we have to face the fact Yellow Springs is on the edge of about 3,000 acres of open space. Plus we have the trail. And these are amenities that we enjoy, but the rest of Greene County gets to enjoy them too, as well as people from other counties. So I'm not in the camp of let's have the police stop people at the borders, but I think we have to try to educate people. I'm even willing to say we put money into paying our wonderful mask makers to make masks and hand them out. Have a stack available in several places, or in some way get them out to people who are coming here. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Thank you. And let's see. Oh, and someone asked me, a citizen asked me, what's the current thinking about opening the pool? Again, I'm kind of for outdoor recreation, so I hope we can figure out how to do it safely. Thank you.
Brian, you want me to jump in on the pool, or
You want to say something about the pool?
Okay, on the pool. I think you all heard me say it before. I see the pool as a community development tool that has a special place in everyone's heart here in the village, and I'm committed to opening the pool when we're able to. So we're waiting for Greene County Public Health to provide guidelines on this. We won't be able to open a pool unless they inspect it and clear the pool for business. So as soon as we're able to get that the green light from them and get that inspection done, we'll open the pool with the restrictions that we'll be required to do. And that restrictions will be primarily around occupancy and other sanitation standards. So I've looked at some models on how we could open the pool safely. There'll be periods on when there's swim, and then everyone has to leave, and there's a cleaning that happens, and the next wave of patrons can come in and use the pool for up to 2 hours. That's one of the models. So I'm looking into it, and we're waiting for additional guidelines from the state and public health authorities to let us know the guidelines on how we'll operate the pool.
Thanks, Josue. Yeah, I do want to just highlight, I think, two things that Laura talked about. One is we do need to continue to think about the restrooms piece, and Greene County Public Health is going to keep us updated on, you know, what their thinking is around May 12th and moving forward. The other thing is, I think Laura's message about, you know, not being a welcoming community in ways that don't really reflect the great village and the model we are in the region. Someone shared something with me about on Saturday, someone driving a car down Xenia and yelling out the window, "Go home." I think that's probably not where we want to be. And Chief Carlson has definitely said that, you know, the way that our officers are approaching people is in that constructive way. So very important to keep thinking about as we move forward. Mary Ann?
Yeah. I think that our biggest concern is the impact of people coming into the village. It seems like people who live here and people who work here understand and are getting behind the protocol of masks and social distancing. So I'm thinking about how can, I'm not suggesting that we try to keep people out because I don't really think that would work. How can we get people who come into town to follow our culture, to develop that culture? And one thing that Laura said might be something we might want to think about, of actually having a way to give or at very low cost sell masks and support some of the people that are doing that. And I was also thinking about, it's hard to go up to, I find it hard to go up to people that are congregating around each other and say something to them. So if we had, I don't know if we had some people actually put out messages, here's what you can say to people, a simple thing like, hey, in Yellow Springs, we have a lot of older people. I'm one of them. And we're really trying to keep social distance, or maybe have little cards that we pass out to people. Some way of really trying to positively impact the people that are coming into town to take on this new culture. And it will be a new culture for probably a pretty long time, like at least the rest of this calendar year. So that's what I'm thinking would be, this is something maybe the chamber and the businesses can think about, but the village government could support however we might do that.
Yeah, and Lisa, I see your hand.
Yeah, a couple things. I know that Karen Wintro is working on an idea and a campaign to sort of make masks cool, right? We talked about this a little bit during the town hall, and even having Yellow Springs branded masks and have enough made so that the businesses could even, give them away, or, I know that that's a model that's being explored. The other thing is I have a lot of people in Washington State. That's where we moved from. And as you know, that's been a real epicenter. And what I've been hearing from people there is that in their communities, everybody is doing their best to have 1 or 2 extra cloth masks in their pocket or bag. And so if they see someone without a mask, they just say, hey, I noticed you don't have a mask. Here's one. And trying to give them out that way, and that they've been received well doing that in Washington State. But that does suggest you have to have enough to be able to have extras.
Right. And, I think that's one thing that I've also seen people raise, is that we can't just keep complaining about people not wearing masks. We have to, help facilitate their wearing masks. And so I love the positive messaging idea. As Lisa pointed out, the reopening group has been meeting for a couple weeks now and expanding to talk to a lot of other people for input. We have a great marketing campaign. And I think that we need to continue looking at that. I also know a group just popped up today that are going to work on yard signs. And so one of the things we've, been trying to get out there is, if we can be consistent as a village about our messaging, even if people are making different kinds of signage and focusing in different ways, that would be really helpful.
Brian,
so I guess I want to highlight, Josue, did you want to say something?
Brian Carlson wants to.
Oh, yeah, Brian.
Yes. Thank you, Brian.
Hey, thank you, guys. Yeah, I just, listening to council's words, there are many thoughts that are passing through my mind at the moment, but I know how confusing much of the restrictions concerning Governor DeWine's orders seem. But I believe much of what Governor DeWine has done is very pragmatic and realistic. We are combating the virus, and the numbers are slowly declining. We're also attempting to lessen our restrictions and open business, which eventually will be a reality. without a vaccine. And this may be a year, it could be 2 years. So I think that in the spirit of how we operate in the village, we should be focusing more, this is my feeling, on how we will survive with these new social behaviors. Because we're not always going to be in our own town and we'll be somewhere else. I do recommend, which I have all along, not to engage, but rather to protect yourself and start understanding those measures socially. Because I can tell you, traveling outside the village, it's nowhere near as safe feeling, for lack of better words. But I think that what we can do is continue to set and create an example of how we envision the future. And again, social behaviors changing globally. And I think that's what our primary objective could be. Hope that made sense.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. Karen Wintro, by the way, has shared through the Zoom chat that we do have several businesses that are making masks and branded and so forth. So those will be out there, and we can think about other ways to get masks on people's faces. I wanted to mention a couple things that I have gathered from this conversation, and one of those is having that roadmap that Lisa talked about. I think is important to continue to develop moving forward, so that we can be very upfront about here's what's going to happen. One of the things that I mentioned during the announcements town hall piece was related to bulk buying of hand sanitizer. So one thing that I would like to recommend, I talked to Josue about this earlier, is that we do support our downtown local businesses with hand sanitizer, and we would like to think that that's one of the expenses we will be compensated for from FEMA emergency relief funds, or potentially there's some funds in the CARES Act that the state is supposed to allocate. There are some other things that may come up as well. So one recommendation I would like to make is that the village take on that support and assume that we will get compensated. But worst case scenario, I believe we do have some unallocated funds from the lodging tax. And I think there's a nice connection between using the lodging tax to support our local businesses in crisis. So I guess I'd like any feedback about that, because that is something that Josue and the team would have to start working on pretty quickly.
Brian, I'm sorry, before we move on to a subtopic, we have citizens that have weighed in on the previous segment of the conversation.
Okay.
How do we want to manage those comments? You want me to just read them all or go one by one? And
yeah, I guess why don't we read them all and see what things we might need to respond to?
okay, and all of the comments that I will be reading, they are from the same residents that have commented or asked questions during the virtual town hall. So would it be beneficial that I just skip over the names and just read the comments or questions? Or you want me to still honor the name and relationship as I read the comments?
Judy wants those names.
Okay.
I am okay if those are the same people who've commented earlier, that we know that they're generally who they are. I think it's okay. If you want to kind of combine people's questions so that you're not reading each one separately, yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So I'll start with the comments. Kay Hamilton, not encouraging is different than enforcing. Enforce, please. That was a comment when I was speaking about we are not encouraging the recreational activities, and Brian Carlson was looking to do some enforcement action at the corner town on light touches. I think it's important to recognize that sentiment that folks want us to do enforcement. And we have some limitations, both legally, and then there's also as a community, how we want to manage this.
Well, and actually, Josue, let's just, I mean, I think it's important to clarify that we have been discouraging, not just not encouraging, but discouraging that activity with our electronic signs, with everything that we put out there, with not promoting the village. I mean, there are a lot of actions that we're taking to highlight that we're prioritizing residents in an environment where we don't have all the control. Public health and the governor, direct a lot of what happens. But I would say we're definitely discouraging, and then I agree with you, enforcement, we've got limitations as to what we can do.
Thank you. The Greene County don't pay extreme prices that we pay to live here. Yet we cannot enjoy the perks because it isn't safe to do so. So that's the statement. Karen Gardner, resident. When the pool does open, can we give priority for usage by village residents? That's something that we would have to look into it. I think pass holders, or we can set up some mechanism for certain classes of membership, but I don't know that we could keep people, the general public out, given that it's a public pool. But that's something that we can look into. Summer McGuire, I'm extremely concerned to hear a statement that the rest of the county should have access to our parks and trail. Communities have their own parks and trail, and folks should be sticking as close to home as they can to prevent the spread of virus. Another comment, Kate Hamilton, we're in a pandemic. There is a stay-at-home order. Our citizens spend a fortune to live here. Summer, can we reduce the volume of visitors if we limit available parking, keep the restrooms closed, and masks have a cost to them that will have a combined effect that reduces the number of visitors? Kate Hamilton commented, pay to mask the citizens first. Summer McGuire, electronic signs are helping, but open public restrooms, handing out masks, and opening all says, come one, come all, whether you intend it or not. And the final comment, FYI, Kettering Recreation Center pool does have a residents only day on Sundays. So Summer is suggesting that it is possible, at least in Kettering, they've managed to do it in for one particular day.
Okay. Great. I mean, it sounds like a lot of those are comments to think about sort of beyond May 12th. And I think those are good ones around the pool and some of the other things. Yeah, again, I think another perspective that's important to keep in mind is that with this balance, that we have to do some things to start changing the behavior around positive messaging, about messaging, period. And if we don't take some of these actions, then we allow it to continue to be like what some of the concerns were with Saturday. So I think being proactive, responding, these are really important moves that we're making, and we're not just opening up the floodgates. So I do want to talk about sanitizer, but the other thing that I think I've heard as a summary is that following the recommendation of Greene County Public Health not to reopen or put any new bathrooms like porta-johns for May 12th is probably prudent. I believe that's, Josue, what you were presenting. From some of the other comments I've gathered, it seems like there's agreement there, but that we need to continue to explore what the restrooms look like. But those to me are kind of the two issues that we probably need to resolve quickly so that we can message that accurately for the May 12th reopening of retail businesses. So related to hand sanitizer, any thoughts or concerns about the proposal for the village to support and hope that we will get compensated by emergency relief, but otherwise we maybe have some funds to cover that. Lisa?
I really think that that's a great idea. I support it. I also wanted to share with people who are at this meeting something that I learned from Josue earlier this week about why the hand sanitizers are where they are right now. And I really want to commend Johnny and his team for their creativity of getting those hand sanitizer stations in place. But I think it's worth noting that they do have a battery component, and so they're not intended to really be outdoor units. So they had to be placed in locations where they had the maximum protection from the elements. And so that guided a lot of the initial decisions and are likely to guide the additional decisions of where hand sanitizer stations are placed, depending on what kind of stations are available. Am I getting that right, Josue?
You're right, Lisa. You're right. Until we figure out a weatherproofing them, particularly from the rain, and you know there's been no shortage of rain in the last couple of weeks.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Lisa. That's really good to point out. And I do want to mention that the hand sanitizer stations, we've also talked about washing stations. As we expand those, that's something else we expect that we can be compensated for with COVID relief funds that are out there. So, you know, these are activities that we are thinking about how we manage them financially as well. Any other thoughts about the sanitizer?
Yeah, I would just say in general that I support, you know, the hand sanitizers, and there's also been some talk about us, excuse me, supporting masks and mask creation in some form or another. I would support both of those. And just one other thing, you know, I don't think we should be afraid to have a stance that might appear more aggressive than the governor's stance, for example. You know, whoever you give credit for these guidelines, but there's some White House guidelines and some Harvard University guidelines that everybody's heard about, you know, waiting for that 2-week lull in the growth of cases. Well, we're opening prematurely when you consider those standards. I mean, we haven't hit that mark. We're being forced to make economic decisions as opposed to health-related decisions. Again, I'm not condemning anybody, but the information's out there. You know, the standards were created, but I think only 10 states have met, you know, those White House or Harvard standards, and Ohio is not one of them. So again, I don't think we should shy away from having more restrictive measures for the time being than are being pushed down from the state.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Any other comments about this proposal? Okay, I think we should, if we're in agreement on, well, I guess let's assess that we have agreement about the hand sanitizer and supporting that initiative. So Judy, you want to do a roll call?
Sure, Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay, so second loosened I mentioned is about bathrooms. So I guess this is the time to indicate any problems with not having bathroom facilities essentially from May 12th till the end of May.
I have a problem with it if businesses are going to serve food.
Okay. Anything else?
And I feel differently that we need to follow the directive of the health department, and I would strongly oppose opening up the bathrooms and or installing portalettes against the advice of the health department.
And I'm gonna lean on the science side of things. I appreciate Laura's points. However, I would suspect that, I'll just use myself as an example. If I'm going to a restaurant here in town and buying takeout food, for the most part, I'm bringing it home to eat it. And, you know, one just needs to moderate one's bladder, et cetera, with respect to needing to use the restroom while you're out.
Yep. Mary Ann, do you want to weigh in?
I'm comfortable not opening.
Okay. And I did get a comment on my chat that also from a downtown business owner that emphasized that if there are not public restrooms, people will not stay. So I think that this is one of the many measures that highlights that we are not trying to encourage a lot of people to come to the village at this point. And again, we've talked about some benefits as to that gentle transition into this. I will say, just so I share my opinion, because Josue and I talked about this a lot today, I'm concerned about, or I have been concerned about the experience of what that means for people to come on May 12th. But I think the important thing is that we clearly message that there are not public restrooms, so that people are coming more for a targeted kind of shopping, or picking up something from a restaurant or whatever, as opposed to thinking about coming to Yellow Springs for the day from Columbus or Cincinnati or something like that. So I think this is in line with the overall consensus that we go slow. So anyway, so I think Josue, you know, I think you've got a majority of support from council on the plan for May 12th with that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything else before we talk about government meetings and facilities?
We've had additional comments on the chat. I don't know if you wanna, if we wanna take them. I think we should.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that if people aren't raising their hands or specifically asking to make a comment, that we don't read things off of the chat, because the last time I read through those, people were commenting among themselves and with each other, rather than with council.
Yeah, I mean, that is going to be, I mean, this is actually a good transition into our next topic about live meetings. This way, is it anything that you think would affect our decision, or that we can't bring up at Wednesday's town hall or something?
I think one of them is very relevant to some of the petitions that the council has considered and weighing its decision around some of these topics. One of them is that one of the commentators said that they support Beer's letter, and Beer's letter is very particular in the type of request that it's making of the village council and the administration. So I would say that that's letter of support and indicating that request.
Okay. So you think we're good otherwise?
I think the otherwise are good. There, one person did comment that none of the comments are that being comments amongst themselves. So I'll just read them. Thank you, Kevin, for your position. So the pool will bring in a ton of folks from elsewhere. A reference to the restaurants and food. It said, call it takeaway like it's called in Europe. And then the final comment was that none of the comments were that they're comments between people.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, well, let's talk about it in the next topic. And per Mary Ann's thought, why don't you start with spring cleanup, large trash pickup? Do we have a plan for that yet, or?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do have a plan. So spring cleanup, as you know, this is an activity that is financed by the village government. It's not a cost that it's transferred on to the residents and the users directly by their participation in it. So we had concerns about the budget implications and whether we can finance this entirely without a detrimental effect elsewhere. So tonight we wanted to review all of that in as much detail as we could. So we are happy to announce that spring cleanup is on. So it is being scheduled for Tuesday, May 26th through Friday, May 30th. And we are able to cover the expense of a spring cleanup that is comparable in participation as of last year. So hopefully there isn't more junk than it was last year. Sorry, more things that are being hauled away than last year. So as it is, we can cover that activity, and it will take place Tuesday, May 26th through Friday, May 30th.
All right. So Josue, why don't we roll into your thoughts around facilities, and then maybe I'll take over the meetings part.
Okay, thank you. For the government facilities, the strategy is very similar to the strategy we're deploying in supporting the business activities. So the government facilities that we have are parking assets, the John Bryan, the pool, the playgrounds, and our parks. Our parks are open and have remained open. That's Ellis Pond, Betty Hughes, all of our parking amenities, they remain open. Our playgrounds, those are closed at the guidance of the governor. So until we have different guidances on the playgrounds, we would take action on those. So when those are able to open, we would take action and open those. Our basketball courts, because it is a high contact sport, that remains closed. The skate park is open. Parking lots, the plan is we have John Bryan, a portion of John Bryan is open. And as we ease the restrictions, we'll open the additional lots. So we'll open the Corey Street and Railroad Street lots come May 12th with some restrictions. And then May 29th, when the stay at home safe order is lifted and additional business activities are allowed, we'll open up those parking assets. Now, related to the John Bryan Center, we're closed now to the public. We expect in May 12th or May 18th of that Monday to open for services here at the John Bryan, but that service is going to be limited. It's going to be limited to what business activities we are allowed to do. So that I see the primary activities happening here will be utility services and some special meetings or specific business meetings that we would have here at the center. And that may be economic development business or planning and zoning business meetings. But they will be limited, and they would still adhere to the social distancing guidelines and the number of people that could be in a close environment. The other spaces that we control will be the gym, the youth center. There's two guidelines that restrict that use, and that is the guidelines around recreational activities and educational activities. So when we get better guidance or new guidance related to those recreational and educational activities, we'll take action. And right now we don't anticipate having anything before the 12th or before our next council meeting. So I will be on the lookout for those guidelines and report back to council when we have anything on those. Regarding bathroom, we talked about bathrooms, that we control one bathroom asset. We're waiting to get a guidance from the public health authorities on that. In a nutshell, that covers all the government facilities. We talked about the pool. We need to hear them on that. That also includes Gone Park, the baseball fields, and the other recreational spaces. Those spaces are open, but we're not allowing organized sports and activities on them. So I hope that covers it. I'm happy to answer any questions related to the government facilities.
Yeah, let me just say also related to that, and then we will see if there are any questions, that this is also part of that roadmap. And again, what Josue has talked about and I've talked about, that we link certain procedures to activities that start to happen again. So thinking about, do we or don't we need to do temperatures? Are we going to be doing other kinds of like health checks, that sort of thing? That will be part of what we want to outline so that we know when the pool opens, this is what happens. When the Bryan Center opens to recreational activities, this is what happens. So related to facilities, any questions or comments that folks would like to share? I think especially with Josue and the team.
Yes, Brian, I'm sorry, I forgot to add. Weddings, weddings are happening. They're happening in the parking lot. We expect that activity May 12th or May 18th at the mayor's discretion may come back into the building within the constraints that they're smaller groups and we take all the protective measures.
So any questions or comments for Josue on facilities? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Okay, so let's talk about meetings. And I think one of the things that has been on my mind is a lot of feedback that we got before we started virtual meetings. And, I still hear it, that it's a challenge in this format to have discussions and public participation. And I think we've done everything we can possibly to allow for that. But we saw that with all the chatting on YouTube that Josue was reading, which is a lot different from someone presenting a comment in a more complete form. So I am curious to hear where folks are at, and I guess maybe what our indicators are. If Philip was here, I would say, what are our metrics for deciding when we go live again? But related to that, let's just go around because with sunshine laws, we cannot talk about this as a group. We need to talk about it in our meeting. So Mary Ann, what are your thoughts?
I think that we should wait until June 1 to have an in-person meeting. I guess partly I'm convinced by what Kevin said. I also think it would give us more time to think about how all of that would be set up. Yeah, I don't have anything. It's just the gut feeling that I think that would be better.
Great, thanks. Kevin, do you want
Yeah, and I think, in general, when you have to try to figure out a way to make it happen, it's not natural. I think there's an organic thing that'll happen. It'll be clear, when, the numbers of cases or whatever the guidelines are, when that is clear, and we don't have to try to figure out where we fit, in this particular guideline, it'll be sort of a natural progression. So in short, I think it would be premature for us to do it now, because there's, again, you could look at the guidelines that are printed and say, well, does that pertain to us or is that really us? When it's clear, I think we will know that that's the thing to do. And when we are not in, whether it's our intent, it wouldn't be our intent to do so, but when we are not creating a circumstance where folks would be at risk, by coming into the same space together, I think it's really quite a simple calculus that we're just not there yet.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Laura?
We're in this for a long time, I think. I'm sort of a believer that a vaccine is probably 18 months away. I'm also a believer in the science about social distancing and masking. And if we can do it I think it would have to be in the gym and keep 10 feet away and figure out how many, I think it's great for citizens to continue to connect virtually if that's what they feel comfortable with. But some people aren't virtual, and also some people want to be there in person. I don't know how many that is. If it's 20, it's probably manageable in the gym to keep everyone apart. So for me, it's a matter of can we do it practically and at least accommodate a certain crowd of people who want to participate in person. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Laura. Lisa Krieger?
So I'm on the fence about this one. I do believe that if we maintain physical distance and mask, that everyone is safe. And so for me, it's more about the logistics of the layout and the technology and how soon we can be certain of that, because the first time we had a virtual meeting like this, it was a little challenging, but we've gotten used to it and it's flowing better. And I think the first time we try to do it again in a different place, not in chambers, we may have some of the same issues. But there is also this part of me that thinks if our downtown business shop owners and their employees are out there on the front line and they're following the social distancing, physical distancing and masking, they're out there, and that we should be doing the same. If wearing a mask and maintaining physical distancing is safe, then we should do all we can to restore in-person public meetings. Now that may take until the beginning of the month. It's possible, but I just keep thinking about what we're asking others to do, what the governor is asking others to do, and that we should ask that of ourselves as well.
So, Judy, do you want to weigh in? Because you've had some thoughts that I was going to share for you, but I think.
Well, I'm not a fan of having a hybrid meeting. I think that we should either we are now meeting live with appropriate social distancing and safety measures so that participation and the meeting is held in the way that it used to be held, with those safety parameters in place, that people are not participating by Zoom. It is not a hybrid meeting. I just think that the expectations created around that become, at that point, overwhelming when you are also trying to hold a live meeting. So I feel like until we're ready to make that transition to going to a live format, we should be in a virtual format. So that's just my opinion.
Any other comments about live meetings?
Well, my only comment is just for is just to say to council that your decision is also a decision for everyone who must attend that meeting to support the council meeting. So, bear that in mind in your decision making.
Thanks, Judy. Chris Connor?
First, I want to say I really like masks on Yellow Springs, and also keep in mind that the life you save may be more than just your own. I want to point out on House Bill 197 that when the legislature passed the emergency legislation regarding the temporary permission to hold virtual meetings, that order will expire by natural operation in December this year. So that open-ended nature of the legislature's recognition that each community and the state would take this incrementally in terms of what would happen next is reflected in that legislation. So it clearly was a reflection of the legislature to say, each community, do what you feel is best for your own community. And with that guidance, I will stop speaking.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and also I wanted to thank Chris again for some of the things I mentioned earlier that he's been researching to figure out the variety of questions around how strict can we be as a municipality vis-a-vis the state directives. So I will say on live meetings, I'm also on the fence. So similar to Laura and Lisa and probably all of us, I believe the science, and I think if we follow the rules, that's the way we go. But I also am comfortable with virtual meetings. It's how I work. And so, so it doesn't personally bother me, but I think some of us are also highlighting the impact that it may have on some of our citizens in terms of participating and also, even being engaged in the meetings. But I guess what I'm hearing overall is that probably the 18th will be a virtual meeting. But I will also say that one of the standards that I thought would make sense, and Judy kind of related to this, was if we are going to have a live council meeting, I agree it should not be hybrid. So the key participants should all be willing to, come and physically distance and all of that. I agree that we should still allow some people to be able, if they don't feel comfortable coming to a physical space, to still have opportunities. And we have that in our YouTube and other things. So we got to think about that a little bit. Similarly, I haven't heard anyone really push a commission meeting, but I would think the same thing would apply. If all the commission members are willing to come to a physical space and distance, then that seems like a good standard. If not, it should probably be a virtual meeting. Josue? Is that a?
Yes, Brian, before you close out, I just need to remind you there's comments on the chat box that are relevant.
Okay, yeah, let's hear them.
All right.
Direct comments for sure.
There are direct comments. One, I want you to be, there's something that we should consider, that there's a lag between our video and audio feed to the YouTube and when people are typing in the response. So it's relatively live, but there's a few second delay. So the last question, a comment that came in, would it be possible to make parking at the lots time limited, like 1 or 2 hour parking? Yes, that's something that we can consider, and we have previously looked into this as part of our a parking management strategy. So that's something that we could revisit. Kate Hamilton, resident, said, stay safe, council. Matthew Kirk, resident, have the meeting, meaning the live meetings, have the meeting at the abandoned amphitheater behind the Bryan Center or the outdoor theater at Antioch. Matthew Kirk, Judy is smart. Kate Hamilton, she is very. Summer, outdoors equal logistical nightmare. Kevin, a resident, said Judy is very smart, so.
Yes. All those in favor of Judy being smart? All right, very smart. Okay, so I think we've heard the comments, asked the questions, and so what I'm taking away is that we've got a general idea of how village facilities are going to open. We've gotten some pretty good feedback on meetings and structure. So at this point, I think people should plan on May 18th still being a virtual meeting. If there is something compelling that comes up, we will operate like we did this time, which is Judy will facilitate any outreach. But that's what it's looking like to me, that May 18th will be virtual, based on everything that is still going on. So any other comments before we hit new business real quickly? Okay, new business is the treasurer's report, and Judy did a great job with this, showing her high IQ. So Judy, if you want to kind of give us the high points on this.
Yeah, you had to make those smart comments before this. So I'll highlights are that currently we have under active investment $7,287,677. This is an increase of $917,539 since the beginning of 2019. Earnings from investments January through March of this year have been $24,240. And that's probably as good as it's going to look for a while.
Judy, we lost you there. We lost your mic. Judy, we lost your mic, Judy.
Somebody keeps muting me. It's not me, I swear. So $24,240 through the end of March of this year. That's probably the best return we're going to see for the year. The market is not looking good. You've got Brad Drager's report, which gives some information around pandemic responses and potential effects on the market. That's an excellent report if you want to give that a look. We've invested since in the last 2 months almost entirely in CDs because they're currently the most stable and highest return investment option. You've got a pie chart that was given to you that lets you know how much of our investment income is in Star Plus, how much is in Star Ohio, and then what's invested with Raymond James. And you can see there, Star Plus, Star Ohio, very high liquidity. Raymond James, slightly less so. And the Raymond James investments are yielding us a better return than the Star Ohio or Star Plus. We're done transferring assets from US Bank to WesBanco. So that's greater flexibility in the ability to invest cash assets and still maintain a high liquidity. And that is sort of those are the high points. If you have questions, I'm happy to attempt to answer them.
Any questions for Judy? Okay, so I know one thing that Judy has asked for is feedback on anything else we would like to see in future reports as we, evolve with working with our investment consultants. It gives us a lot of detail. I appreciate the high level, but yeah, please let Judy know if there are other things that she can show us that would be helpful for both the village council and for the community. All right, so with that, we've got discussion about any future agenda items, and then we'll wrap it up. So anything that folks want to be thinking about for future agenda items? Yeah, Lisa.
So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about how different everything's going to be going forward. This conversation, many of them tonight really attest to that. And I would like to present an idea to council to have an activity that is called Stop, Start, Continue. That some of you may have heard about it. And I will present what that's all about and make a very brief case for why that might be a useful thing for us and the village manager and the village team to invest some time in.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa. Laura, did I see your hand?
Yes. In anticipation of commissions perhaps having meetings, and I think we'll have fairly urgent business probably for Planning Commission at some point, I'd like to go ahead and add to the agenda the nomination of Stephen Green and Dino Pilata. Lisa and I interviewed them before COVID-19, and then that got put on hold.
Okay, great. Anything else? Okay, if not, Marianne?
Yes, as I think we could tell from communications from businesses, there have been requests that village government support businesses in some way, which I think it's pretty limited on how we can do that, but there are things that I'm sure the village government can do. And I think it would make sense to have that as a topic, and maybe it would be something that would be an ongoing topic for a while. And we did touch upon it. Brian, you talked about money that's at the county level, but I think it's important for businesses to understand the constraints that we have as local government, and for us to also see how creative we can be in what kinds of support, which I don't imagine it's going to be a lot of direct financial support, but what kind of things we can do to support local businesses as the village government, as opposed to the Yellow Springs Development Corporation, which I think will have to take that on as a major task.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think we're going to have a lot of updates about that at the next meeting. Both some things that are being decided by the Development Corporation related to, the revolving loan fund and getting that online. But also, I want to talk about a grant writer. I had mentioned that in earlier comments. So I know Josue is thinking about that as well. So I think definitely on the 18th and moving forward, we should be looking at what we can do and what's happening. Laura?
Is it appropriate to have a short report the next time on what the county is thinking with the rainy day fund? And is that going to possibly benefit the village in some way?
Yeah, I think by the 18th, we'll have a good idea of where the advocacy efforts might go. We've collected enough ideas that we're starting to kind of bounce off of targeted legislators. So yes, we'll do that. And Judy, did you raise your hand for something or? Okay. All right. So Josue?
Yes, Brian?
Oh, your box lit up, so I didn't know if you were starting to say something. Okay. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, thanks for hanging in there, everyone.
Have a good evening, rest of the week, etc.
Thank you, and may the 4th be with you.
May the
Yes.
fourth be with you. Bye-bye.
Bye.